Thanks,
Great.
Lance.
Thank you. Thank you, Curtis. Thank you. Welcome, everyone, to Office Hours with Lance Lingerfeld. I am here today with some international trainers. Both these individuals are from Africa, Nigeria, and we welcome them today to speak about identity and security. First up, we're going to have Victoria Tibito speak on Intra ID, and then we're going to have, secondly, going to have Olafekia present on, I think it was Azure security of some sort. I can't remember off the top of my head. But anyway, they're both great presentations. I'm going to speak briefly on Secure Score at the end. So please hold your questions till after the presentation. And if you want to put them in the chat, feel free to do so as well. And with that, we'll get started. Victoria, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Lance. All right. Let me just share my screen. Just a moment. All right. Hi, everyone. Happy Friday. Happy weekend. Today, I'll be talking about Microsoft Identity with Entra ID. All right. And I want to say thank you very much to Office Pro for this opportunity to train and to teach and to talk on Entra ID with identity. So moving on, I'm Tim Dr. Victoria. I'm a technical trainer, a writer, and also a Microsoft 365 expert and consultant. So you can contact me via my website, my email, and my socials with Tim Dr. Victoria. So today, what we'll be talking about, we'll be looking at Microsoft Entra. We'll be talking about identity management. I'll be doing the demonstration, like a practical on the Microsoft Entra. All right. So when it comes to Microsoft, right, Microsoft provides this opportunity for users, customers, employees, and everyone using their platform to be able to manage things, manage users, manage groups on the applications. Now, think about an organization that has like 5,000 users, and each and every one of these users connect to different social media applications. So Microsoft set up the new Entra ID. They moved from the Azure portal to the new Microsoft Entra, which is called the Entra ID. Now, we know that identity management is very important for these businesses. And so this was the reason Microsoft moved from the Azure AD into the Entra for users to manage the identity. Now, the reason for creating the Microsoft Entra is for users to have seamless identity management. And so now let's move on to identity management with Entra ID. I'm going to be looking at some of the features of identity management, and then we'll go straight into the demo. So now when it comes to identity management with Entra ID, we have cloud identity management. Now, cloud identities are users, groups, and services. They are users and groups that connect to services and applications. So let me give an example. You have an employee within your organization that connects to OneDrive on the cloud, and from them connecting to OneDrive, they have access to groups, they have access to services, they have access to files. With cloud identity and with identity management in cloud identity, you can manage the access that these users have to files. Now, think of a CEO. A CEO can have access to finance, revenue that is made, but for a basic user, just a new person in the company, the person will have access to those kind of files on OneDrive. So you can manage these things on the Entra ID, giving access using users, using roles, and using groups. Then you can also connect to devices. On the Entra ID, you can manage users who connect to devices. Think of users who connect to Outlook. They can connect to Outlook on their mobile app. They can connect to Outlook on their PC, and it actually syncs. So that means that whatever changes they make on their Outlook, whatever emails they send on their Outlook on the mobile app, they would find it on the desktop application. Then another interesting aspect of the identity management is the Identity and Access Administrator Associate exam. So you can write the exam, which is the SC 300, if you want to be an identity specialist, if you want to learn more about Entra, if you want to have practical labs on the identity. Then with Entra ID, you can manage on-premises application and local Active Directory. So with this ones, when we have hybrid environments that use on-premise and we have hybrid environments that use the cloud that syncs, with the Entra ID, you can manage applications and services that connect to the cloud. And this is also one of the things that Entra Connect uses to check the sync status. Then we have external identities, which you can refer to as the B2B. So think of you have an auditor from an external organization that needs to audit your files, audit a lot of things within your organization, and they need access to teams, they need access to groups. In the Entra ID, you can manage and add these users. You can add guest users. They are known as external identities, but we'll call them guest users for them to make changes, have access to some resources within your organization. So now looking at this image right here, we have Entra ID at the center, we have devices to the right, and we have the external identities. So as I mentioned, with Entra ID, you can have a look at users that connect to devices. So let's say you set up a policy, you do not want your users within the organization, each of your users are identities. They are connecting to different applications, and you want security. Security is one of the core things that organizations think about because sensitive information is being passed across departments and employees, and you want to restrict the way users can connect to devices within certain locations and within IP addresses. You can manage it in Entra ID. You can have a look at, you can even see the devices that your users are connected to. So if you set it that users cannot connect to maybe their Microsoft account or link their Microsoft account to other devices, you can restrict it on the Entra ID. Then the Entra ID also gives you the external identities, where I said you can create guest users and you can have access to HR systems. Then we have SaaS applications. With your Microsoft account, which is the identity, you can connect to SaaS applications. That's top software as a service applications. Some of them are like Microsoft Word, Microsoft Outlook. Some of them could even involve other cloud infrastructure like the AWS, the service now, and we have the on-premises. With Entra ID, you can manage security, manage connections of your users to applications and services. So we have the Microsoft Entra documentation. We have the learn.microsoft.com, and you can check this documentation for more information about the Microsoft Entra. So before I go into the demo, do we have any questions so far? No questions. All right. So I just want to share my screen again for us to go to the Entra. Okay. So I talked about the Entra, and I said Microsoft moved from the Azure portal to the Microsoft Entra, which is the Entra ID. And so you have to be an admin, whether you're a global admin or an admin that has higher rights. You can have access to the Entra portal, and it's just entra.microsoft.com. And then you will need to sign in with your admin account. Okay, sorry, I made a mistake with that. Entra.microsoft.com. Then you can sign in. So you just have to sign in with your admin, can be a work account. And this shows you the portal for the Microsoft Entra. So you can see here it says secure access to protect any identity and secure access to any resource. So Microsoft's main goal, the very important goal of the Entra is for identity management. You can see here at the top left corner that there is an entire space for identity. If I open the portal.azure.com, here you can have access to if you have Azure resources like VMs, web apps, the portal.azure.com is still in use, but it's more for resources like the app services, storage accounts, SQL. They moved the identity aspect for managing your Microsoft Azure tenants into Entra. And that's one big difference between the Entra and the Azure portal. So right here, I'll just be showing a few things on the Entra admin connecting to users. So we have the overview right here. And the overview, you can see information about the tenants. But I'll be moving straight to users. So I mentioned that you can manage users, groups, and devices and connections to devices like this. So let's wait for it to load a bit. So right here, you can see Azure Active Directory is now Microsoft Entra ID. So right here on this Entra Admin Center, you can create a new user or you can invite an external user. Now, the external user, which I mentioned, is the external identities, the guest user. So one thing I'd like to show here is you can delete users and you can restore users. So let's say you an admin mistakenly deleted a user. For example, this user. Let's delete this user right here. So once this user is deleted, oh, maybe the user can reach out to the IT admin and say, oh, something is wrong. I can't access my resources. I can't sign into Outlook. I can't sign into the web. You would have to do a search for the user, right? And if you don't find the user, there are two things you can do. One of the major things you can actually do is to use the audit logs, and I'll get to that. But before that, you can go to the deleted users and then just check the user and restore the user. But the thing with Microsoft and understanding about identities, something that is very crucial is users are permanently deleted automatically 30 days after they are deleted. So if you delete the user today, April, by May, the user will be permanently deleted. And if there is no backup or no, on the Exchange side though, there is no backup or hold that keeps these mailboxes, they'll be entirely deleted. So you can now restore the user and then this would restore the user back. So once this user is back, the user will be able to connect the Microsoft account to their Outlook, to the web, to LinkedIn, to social media applications they want to connect their Microsoft accounts to. But to further add that, when you delete a user, if you want to find out what actually went wrong or what happened, one of the things you can use on the Entra side is audit logs because you need to know what exactly is going on with these users. Though the audit log would take a few minutes for it to show the changes that you've made. It may not show like right now, but within a few minutes, you would find out that the user was deleted and you would see who deleted the user. Okay, so it's populating now. You can see 419 at this time. This user was deleted. So if you refresh again, it would show the account properly. So managing identities, knowing how users can connect to applications, knowing how seamless it is for them is very important. And then you can see who actually did the action, which admin, because we have organizations that have several admins, they have more than one administrator. So that's also important. Another aspect of managing users I'd like to talk about is the sign-in logs. So users connect to multiple applications. Now think of your user connecting to maybe a service or maybe another application. Let's give LinkedIn for example. This is an example. Let's say LinkedIn was hacked and they have Microsoft accounts linked to this LinkedIn. One of the things that Entra gives you is access to see the way they connected to each application and the IP addresses. So for sign-in logs, these sign-in logs will show sign-in logs within the Microsoft tenants, within the Microsoft services. We have Azure portal, users can connect to PowerShell, users can connect to Outlook, they can connect to Teams, and many more. So right here, you can see that me connecting to Azure portal actually shows right here. And it says that conditional access is not applied. It also shows my IP address. So with this, you can manage users who connect to different applications. So let's say, for example, your user signs in, or you get alerts. Now, Microsoft give alerts for sign-ins, maybe anomalies, things that do not look fine. You can easily see where the supposed user signed in with the IP address. We have times where hackers maybe have access to the credentials. Let's say an employee within the organization wrote the password down and the account somewhere, and someone found it, and they are trying to sign in, and you're getting a lot of multiple sign-ins that are not right. You can easily come to the sign-in logs, and if you notice that it is outside of the IP address that your employee uses, you can easily copy this IP address. On the security part, block the IP address. One of the important aspects of this is security. We cannot overemphasize the fact that we're in a world where cyber attacks are prominent and constant, and we need to maintain security within our organization because of sensitive information. We need to constantly check these logs. We need to constantly manage our users' connections to external services, external applications. All right, then. Any questions yet? Okay,
No,
so
no,
there are no
no.
questions.
Great. Thank you. Thank you so much, Victoria. That was great examples, great demo of Intra ID. Um, yeah, do you think Microsoft is going to make this the default? I know that a lot of these functions you can do in the admin portal of M365, except things like this, the sign-in logs you have to go to Intra to look at. Do you think Microsoft will keep the admin center part of it, or do you think they will try to get everyone to use Intra ID directly from now on?
I actually think they will try to make everyone use the Entra ID from now. I know we still have the Azure portal right there, but
Mm.
like, let me give an example. We had the Exchange Admin Center. Then
Hmm.
they moved, there was the Classic, yes. Then everyone had to move from the Classic to the Exchange.
Right,
And
right.
now
Yeah.
there is also the Outlook that we're moving to the new Outlook. And the more they move in this resources, the more they move in these features from the old portal to the new portal. They're
Okay.
definitely going to make sure everyone uses this portal.
Okay, great. Well, great. Well, thank you
Yeah.
again. Thank you again, Victoria. Does anyone have any questions? Great presentation. Um, and thank you for showing us Intra ID this morning. Next up here, we have Olafakia. He's going to go into some Azure security, and I'll let you have the floor.
Thank you, Curtis. Thank you, Lance. My name is Oshatoyinbo Olafaika. I'll be a co-trainer today with Victoria. First, I'd like to thank OfficePro for giving me this opportunity and landscape to be able to showcase knowledge to other people. I'll be starting by sharing my screen. Just let me know when you can see my screen, sir. Okay. Like I said earlier on, my name is Oshatoyinbo Olafaika, and I'll be taking you in the identity and security part. Victoria did a good job in her own session. She talked about identity management, and she talked a little about security. Security cannot be overemphasized in organization because organizations deal with data, and data needs to be protected. Um, my name is Rashatin Belafaik, and I'm a Microsoft 365 expert, a data analyst. I'm a physicist by degree and a cloud engineer. And on the screen, that's my contact on the screen. You can contact me via my LinkedIn and my email address, and on my social media at Olafayimika. Jumping right into the presentation, I'll be doing something similar to what Victoria did, but however, I'll first like to take through, give a brief understanding of how security and identity are interwoven. Um, Apologies on the for the Azure AD you see on the screen. I still most of the time I still refer to it as Azure AD. However, is more of Entra ID now. So Victoria mentioned something about creating of users, creating of objects, and management of objects. Now, she mentioned about the hybrid object and also the cloud object. And we know she mentioned about the AD Connect. Now, the AD Connect is what we use in making on-premises objects becomes the hybrid objects. And this is also done, and this make sure the on-premises objects have access to the cloud infrastructures abilities. And one of the things that used to come on when it comes to objects and access to applications or infrastructure, security needs to be checked. And also we have to limit access to some certain applications or infrastructures, just like Victoria mentioned on the call. Now, when we need to set limitation, we do that. We can do that through numerous. We can do that through numerous functions from the Entra ID. But I'll be mentioning just two on the call just for time. We have the conditional access and we have the MFA. Now, why are we talking about MFA is because when you sign in, when you try to have access to application, most of the time you have to put in your credential, which is your username and password. And most of the time we live in a dispensation right now, where we have so many hackers out there that can trying to steal information from organization. Now, the MFA was placed in place by Microsoft for security purpose. Now, MFA is like an agent on the Office 365 that try to verify the authentication of the user. So you think about it like an extra layer. Let's think about it as an extra layer to verification of identity. So, and there are two ways you can go about this in the Office 365, which is through the conditional access policy and also through the legacy per user MFA. Now, why we have the legacy per user MFA is, I believe, is because the conditional access policies cannot be accessed by every user because you require some certain license to be able to use the conditional access policy. But the legacy per user MFA is accessible to all users. And just early on, just before we go on, I'll give a snap scenario, a image on the call just to emphasize what I'm trying to say. Now we can see from the image right here on the call, we have the Azure, which is the Entra ID at the core of all the functionalities. And we can see that why we have it there is what Victoria mentioned on the call. We have identity is where objects are being managed. So objects are being managed from there. So we have to be able to control the security and also access to applications and files from there. Now, when we come to conditional access policy, our conditional access policy is, apologies for Mr. Twin. I just think I just need to go to the demo, and I believe going to the demo will make it faster. So conditional access policy, I should just switch to the demo right on the call and get to showing how that is done. So this is me going into my Entra ID. Let me just go back to the home. This is me going to my Entra ID. First, for you to get to conditional access policy, you have to go to protection. Then from protection, you set your conditional, you click on conditional access policy, and you can see right here, you can create a policy. So when you click on create a policy, it will prompt you to give it a name. Let's just wait for it to load. So right here, I can just say security for organization. So now when we give it a name, it asks for the assignment. Assignment is which objects on your Entra ID should this policy action on. So when you click on users here, you can see you can select between all users. For this case, I want it for my organization, so I select all users, or you can select selected users. And under the selected users, you can go ahead to specify which of the users, either your guests or external users, or users and groups. And you can also create an exclusion. So you can say, I want this policy to affect this certain object, let's say these devices or users, because I can pass them as objects. You can either say you want you to affect these users or objects, or these users of devices, and not affect these users. So that's where the exclusion comes in. So, but for the sake of the call, I'm selecting all users, and right under the condition, like I mentioned, we are trying to create the MFA. So we have the target resources. We have target resources here. So target resources. Now we are creating MFA through the conditional access policy for users in our organization. So now the target resources is what are the targeted scope where these users are required to authenticate. Now, from what Victoria explained to us on the call, users are required to authenticate when you're signing into their applications, into other like software as a service, Office 365 applications, or they're signing into portals. So we do this to restrict access to applications. So since I wanted to affect all my organizations, and I always prompt them to verify which of the user is correct and getting access. So I'll select all cloud apps. So all cloud apps encompasses every every ability and every function and access of Office of the Entra ID. So I'll go to condition. Now under condition, you can set conditions here. You can condition is you can either select device platform or location or client apps. Now there have been scenarios where we have users complain that I have um I have my MFA enabled, and however, I did not authorize a sign-in and it came in. Now, I'll get to that at the as we go on the call. We have these scenarios where some hackers are very smart and good with their job, and they get access to user credentials. So setting these kind of conditions kind of limit those kind of access the hackers have. So you can either consider that I have users working for my scenario now. I stay in Nigeria, Lagos, Nigeria, and my staffs works in Lagos. So I can either set my condition in my conditional access policies to users working in Lagos. So if any of my user step out of Lagos or latitude and try to access any cloud app, they will be restricted. They won't get access because the MFA will try to authenticate them. And when the MFA try to authenticate them, it checks the condition I stated in the conditional access policy. I notice this user is out of this condition and restrict them. And also we have client apps, we have devices. Now with devices, we have issues in scenarios where you have users you have users with domain joined devices, and you want to allow your users to sign in only with devices registered under your Entra only. So with that, you can use the device platform to restrict your users to only devices registered under your organization. So in as much your user want to use his or her phone, now if you Intune, they should cover it. But let's say your user doesn't have the Intune, the phone registered under Intune, or doesn't have any of the devices, laptop or iPad registered, they won't be able to get access to the application via those devices. So, I do not need to restrict any of my user now, so I'll just go to access control. Now, access control is where we'll be giving the command for access, just like it says, access control. Now, if right after we check all these conditions we set on this policy, these users, target resources, then conditions, what action should this policy take? Now, like I mentioned, I want to create a multi-factor authentication using the conditional access policy. So I will click on require multi-factor authentication. Now, earlier on, I mentioned something about granting access to only devices registered in the organization. So you can see here, required device to be marked as compliance, required Microsoft Entra hybrid joint devices. So if you want a authentication level to devices only registered in your organization, you can go ahead to check those other boxes. So right after that, you can just click on create. Can click apologies. I just need to drag this here. I didn't save this, cancel. So right after that, you can just select that and click on select. Right after you click on select, you go to create, and you can see there's a banner right here stating that um my email address this will fall under this policy, and it's just I want it telling me that if I do not have all my policy, if I do not have my credential registered already, like my authenticator app or anything, I could get logged out of the um from the tenant through the conditional access policy. So since for this, I could just go ahead to the users and exclude myself for this policy at the moment. So I could just go exclude, then user, then I come over here. I apologize for this. Olafayika, like this, then select. Then right after that, I can go ahead to create this policy. So it's creating the policy, just created the policy. And if you notice, when I created the policy, I set it only to report only. However, if you want it to take effect immediately, you can always turn the policy on. So if you turn the policy on, it takes effect immediately, but report only makes you as an admin to overview it to see how it works, if you need to make changes or not. And also, again, that is how you can create the multi-factor authentication to buffer the security of your users when they are accessing cloud applications or working with their objects on the internet. And also, again, I mentioned a second way you can achieve MFA for users, for organizations that do not have the higher part in the buying power to get license, just like the enterprise license, the premium. You can always use the legacy per user, which I mentioned earlier. So to accomplish that, you can go to your identity, users or users. Then from all users, you click on per user MFA. So when you click on per user MFA, over here you can see all the users registered on your tenants, and here you can enforce MFA for them. Now, why I always advise to use conditional access policy is because with conditional access policy, it gives you the power to do more than just authenticating your users. So with conditional access policy, you can limit the scope of signing to locations and devices, just like I mentioned. And with that, you can cut hackers from getting credentials of your users. Now, we know some users are careless. There was an investigation which I saw on the news one time. This user went to the bowling alley and logged in into and signed and connected to the Wi-Fi of the bowling alley with his office computer. And from there, there was this blue snapping occurring. There was a hacker doing the blue snapping, and the credentials were stolen from there. Now, if it was an instance where the organization have like a conditional access set up to restrict signing, the hacker is going to have a very difficult time getting into the organization to steal information. And also, I know again, I think when I worked support at some time, and then I worked on a case where the conditional access policy was created, and credentials were still stolen. Now, what really happened then was, like I mentioned earlier, they just created the conditional access policy for MFA, but they did not restrict it to locations and devices. So you using your conditional access policy restricting to location and devices can go a long way to safeguarding your users' credentials and saving your users from hackers. And also moving on, when it comes to security, Victoria mentioned about access to like emails in your Outlook and not. And we also know we have bodies that govern security and compliance in organization. Just one moment, please. Let me just switch back to my slide. So that's what will bring me to data governance and compliance. Now, when we come to data governance and compliance, we're talking about um, what are the things that what data should be protected in organization. Now, Microsoft does this that with Entra you can do a lot of things, and with Entra you can also function and stay, and you can also function and add to the compliance policies of these bodies. Now we have bodies like the GDPR, the CCPA, the SPACEMA. These bodies create policy compliance for every organization, and any organization that does not stick to that would be sanctioned. Now we know that most organizations deal with data, and data is very paramount to live activities. Now, if data is leaked, it can cause so many issues in organization. So now Microsoft have something in place for that, which we call the Microsoft Information Protection. Now this is another security function Microsoft have on the Entra ID, and the Microsoft Information Protection it encompasses when we have your encryption, that's you can have your Azure Information Protection. And your Azure Information Protection, you can use that to protect information, just like you can encrypt data. When you're sending email, you can encrypt your data in emailing. You can encrypt your data also in your Excel and Word. Now, in a case where you want only the intended person to receive this, when you put your data, you send it to the person. Now, if anybody that does not have access to that person credentials try to access the email, they will be requested for authentication. Now, if they do not pass the authentication, now they don't get access to the data. And with that, you've secured that data. So Entra have with Entra, we can do a lot in safeguarding your objects and the way your objects treat data in the organization. So my colleague also already covered monitoring and alerting. So I'll just do it to just give a brief summary about it again. Monitoring and alerting is also a good way to get information about what's going on. Just like I mentioned, security can never be overemphasized in organization. So when issues happen in organization, you always want to investigate what happened, and that's a part of security. So when you want to investigate, we can do this through the audit logs, and the for let's say you have, like Victoria said on the call, let's say an object was deleted and you want to know why, you can use the audit log to understand who performed this action and why this action was performed. And also, when it comes to authentication, just like I covered on the call, when it comes to authentication, you can always use the sign-in logs to know what kind of authentication happened. I could just go right back to my 10-step environment. So if you go to the Entra, you can always know, like say, I want to find out let me go to my user, Olafaika, right here. I want to find out what has been happening to this user. Let's say this user got a signing prompt and I claimed the signing was not from me. I want to know, how does this signing occur? I can just go to the signing. Then when on the signing, you get the information from the user, the time and dates you see right there. So you just click on the record here. And over here, you can see we have basic information. Now, this is basic information about the objects that made the authentication. Right here, we can see the location the authentication was made. We can see the device, the objects used, authentication details, and if a conditional access was in place, you see information about the conditional access policy. So with these tools, you can always get information, and also you can set alert policies. Now, alert policies can be set from the compliance portal. We can always go to the compliance portal right here.
Yeah. Thank you, sir. Yeah, we're running out of time.
Oh, apologies.
Yeah, running out of time. We kind of ran over a little bit, but that's okay. It's great. Great presentation. Go ahead and conclude. I'll let you conclude your slide here.
Okay. Thank you. So apologies for taking a lot of your time. Just to my conclusion, administrating M365 and Azure requires combination of technical expertise, strategy planning, and continuous learning. So for admins, my tips for them is try to familiarize yourself with the tools. Try to familiarize yourself with the tools and function on the Entra ID, and also keep yourself up to date with policy changes from organization. This can never be overemphasized. Thank you for listening.
Great. Thank you, Olapika. Appreciate it very much. Very good presentation. Very good job. I hope everyone learned a little bit about conditional access policies. They're very important to your organization. And as we're talking about security in general, we need to start looking at the different ways to manage it, like he was saying. And one good way that I like to manage it is using a tool called Secure Score. Let me put this up here. I'm going to talk to you a little bit today about Secure Score. Now, Secure Score is a tool that uses analytics to help evaluate the security posture of your IT environment. It provides a score based on that security configuration that you have and practices that you are currently using in your environment, and then it'll suggest ways to kind of fix them if something's kind of off in there. Okay, Microsoft Secure Score. Basically, like I said, it's a proactive security tool that helps you evaluate your environment. The security configuration score is a percentage-based score based on what a set of actually compliance and security standards that are measured by Microsoft and their tenants that are said to make you need to comply to in order to be secure in your M365 and Azure environment. Improvement actions are then recommended and are given to you to help you reduce risk. It's important to understand that the definitions of key terms when working with Microsoft Secure Score. The configuration score is the measure of how secure your environment is, where the improvement actions are the actual recommendations. So sometimes the one you want to make sure that you got different categories and make sure that you get your improvement actions set up. And it's a good way to get started. And the importance of Secure Score, is to make sure that you have a comprehensive overview of security configuration in your environment. You want to make sure that you're following rules to make sure that your data and your users are safe. It will prioritize security issues that you may have for you and give you a list of things to do, so that many organizations have change controls. They have processes in place to make sure that when changes are made to the environment, they're logged and vetted by the proper staff. So the improvement actions that are given allow you to do different things, and I'll show you that in the demo. Also, it will help you stay compliant by notifying you if there are changes, if there are regressions, if there are issues that new things that come up. It just doesn't set it one time and forget it. It keeps an eye on it and lets you know if things are changing. So it's always evolving as Microsoft puts in new products and new changes to like Teams and Outlook and the web apps and the compliance. Azure, Entra, they update Secure Score and the recommendations that are needed to make sure you stay compliant. All right, we got some use cases for Secure Score. The first one is like identifying and mitigating security vulnerabilities. Microsoft Secure Score will provide a centralized view of the security posture across your various Microsoft services. And then it'll help identify the security vulnerabilities by assessing the configuration and the activities that are going on in your environment against Microsoft best practices. And then it will put that into a score, and the score will reflect the extent to which you have implemented your security controls, which can mitigate potential vulnerabilities. And then you can take those vulnerabilities and make actionable items based on the recommendations to fix your environment or make it more secure. Another use case is prioritizing security investments based on industry best practices. Because the Secure Score is based on recommendations and best practices by Microsoft, you can be assured that they will be updated and they are not just left alone. And they will make sure that you are properly informed if you are not following security standards and if you need to work on security vulnerability. You do have the options in that to be able to accept the risk that you're taking for legal purposes, and it provides reporting that you can do that with. So again, with regulatory standards, meeting the compliance requirements and regulatory standards. Basically, like I said, the recommendation plans that are given give you detailed instructions, which I'll show in the demo, how to actually mitigate any security problems that you may have, and the best way to do it for your users. And then, as I said, another use case for this is providing a roadmap for secure configuration. When new things come up, it will provide in the recommendations what's currently being used and what might be used in the future so that you can stay abreast of any security changes as things arise, especially with like email and access to SharePoint and access to Teams data. There's always changes. People are always learning how to hack into things and learning how to do things that need people on your company's end in your IT department to be able to mitigate and secure for your environment. And also what you can do, it lets you track security improvements over time. So you start at a particular level. You can say we started here and we did these things over this time period, and now our security score is here. So it's very, very good for that. It allows you to track those improvements so that you can say we did this to improve, kind of like the same way food vendors are inspected by the health administration to make sure that they follow the safety standards there. You can also show what you've done. All right. Next slide here. Here's some slides that I have of some of the different screenshots, which I'll show you when we get to the demo here. Basically, this shows how you can look up your secure score. In the middle screen there, you see the percentage there, and you have your top menus where you can look at everything. Also, you can look at the recommendation screen on the right. And it's easy to ask. Basically, go to security.microsoft.com/securescore. Or if you just go to the Microsoft portal, you can get to it on the menu to the left where Secure Score is. And I will show you that here in the demo. If you want more information, I will be providing this PowerPoint for availability for you to use after the session. There are some links here. Secure Score website basically shows you the overview of Secure Score. And then all the IT documentation is available under that and the Learn website, and also on the Docs website, which will allow you to configure Secure Score, know how it works, and know how to do that. Then there's the roadmap. Like I said, there's a roadmap for every product that Microsoft puts out. When they're going to add new features, add new capabilities to the product, they will put it on the roadmap. The link is there. And you can also just go to the Security Center and not only look at Secure Score, but other parts of security in your organization. Okay, it's demo time. So let me move this over here. This is my environment that I have. I have opened up security.microsoft.com and I've gone to a Secure Score, which I have it listed here. Now in this tenant, I have a 66.94% score. which is not great. It probably needs to be better, but you can compare yourself to other companies of your size and of similar background. So if you work in banking industry, if you work in IT industry, or manufacturing, you can compare yourself to other organizations, and compared to others, as you can see, they're at 41% and I'm at 66%. So I'm a little bit better. Here are your actions to review. If anything's regressed, you can click on that and find out what happened to regress. That means your security posture went down for some reason. Maybe you added a conditional access policy that excludes users, like Olafika was talking about. That can actually change your secure score. You have a number of issues and recommendations that need to be addressed. And then if you plan them, you can put them in a planned state, and that will affect all these affect your score. And then, of course, I have some that I accept the risk, or if you're doing it through another party, like a lot of the identity stuff, if you're not using Azure AD Connect or Entra ID Connect to sync your on-premise AD or to do your password syncing, you can use a program like Okta or Ping ID or another tool that will have to say you're doing it through a third party, which I'll show you here in a second. But again, here's a breakdown of your categories. It does by identity, data. It says devices and apps. So you have broken down into groups, and your opportunities in white, and what you've done is in blue. So you can always go and look at your changes, the history. As I said, you can look at the history of what you've done. Here's some resources that you have, and any messages from Microsoft that might be going on if your score is not working or something like that. So what I like to do is look at this and then see, if anything news popped up here, and see, everything's good that needs to be addressed immediately. Some of these that I have, you can always go to recommendation actions, and it puts a full list up there. So you go to your recommendation actions, and then say, a lot of these are for, it tells you what product it is. Like, so I have Defender for Endpoint that I use on my servers. So a lot of these are the device ones that you can set up. And so let's see, I have Defender for Office here. So let's set the phishing level of email to 2 or higher. Let's do this one. This will pull up a window here and says, here's a description of what it is. And here's what you've done to implement it. So it says 100% of my users are affected by policies that are configured less securely than the recommended action. So, okay, so, well, I got to make the change on this. So what do I need to do here? Okay, it says I have the proper, it'll tell you if you have the proper licenses. Sometimes you might have to accept a risk if you don't have the license for it, if you don't pay for the license for it. So that'll give you any prerequisites you have. It says then I have to go to an anti-phishing policy of a phishing email threshold, and to do that. So I can go here to learn more, to pull up a document on how to do that. So if I want to do that, I can pull that up here. It'll take me to the learn and take me to the exact place where I need to go to do it. And then I can go make those changes. What I can do from this here is go to the action plan and say, okay, I know what I need to do. I need to go through my manager to make sure that I'm going to do it. And so I click it on planned, and then say plan to fix next Friday. And you can save it, and then it will put it in a planned state. If you choose to have risk accepted, then you have to choose, if you choose to have risk accepted, then you have to choose a reason why. If you say you're resolving it through another system, then you say resolve through third party, or if you do it some other way. But this gives you those choices to be able to do that. And then you can also use tags, because tags are really good. Like last week in Outlook, we were talking about the categories, and I thought that was really, really neat. You can tag things in Azure to kind of put it on your dashboard, to kind of make it so it's easy to get everything. So you don't have to sit there and go to security, and then have to go to compliance, and then have to go to Entra ID. You can kind of have a dashboard that kind of has everything in it, and you can tag everything so that you can easily say, oh, I want to search on email stuff. And you can tag it as email stuff, and it'll pull all this relevant data. So here you can go through the different ones, and go through and resolve all these, and it'll affect your score in the end. And so whenever changes are made, see, I made some changes here, and then I made some changes here, and then I did something right here, and my score went way up from like 64% to 67%. So, and it'll tell you exactly what you did and who did it, and if Microsoft found something that you're already doing and up your score. So, and when you make changes to setting things to planned, as I did, it will affect and say put it in a planned state. So, um, that's pretty neat. Again, you can look at your trends. You can compare it to other companies. You can see if there is any testing done. And if you decide to go in the AI route, AI can, the AI security for Copilot will look at this data and try to assist you in actually preparing and making this work for you. So, um, anyway, that's pretty much how Secure Score works off the top of my head. Are there any questions? Okay, well, we're almost at the top of the hour. Thank you, everyone. I'd like to thank OfficePro, of course, Curtis and Aaron Odler for letting me do these office hours. I'd like to thank the Microsoft Speakers Hubs for providing our speakers today. They're a great resource. Olavikia and Victoria, thank you again. You did a great job.
Thank you.
Great. You can reach me at my blog at itblog.ldl.net. My email's listed here. Again, this will be available for review once I get everything completed in the video edited. Next week's topics, I am headed to Denver, Colorado to go to the CommsB Next conference. It's going to be a great show. There's going to be a lot of talk about AI, and there's going to be a lot of talk about SharePoint and Teams there. So all these tools that are being used and how to properly use them and make your workplace better. A big part of being a trainer and a big part of being a speaker in today's world is to be able to network at these conferences. So my topic next week is going to be how I do that and how I do some of my marketing to help promote myself and other speakers and how I meet people and give you kind of a review of the conference. And then the week after that is going to be the big Microsoft conference, which is the M365 Community Conference in Orlando, Florida. I will be at that as well. So if you're going to those conferences, come and meet me, come and see me. I'll probably be in the sales area with all the booths. And attending probably most of the AI or the SharePoint and Exchange topics at the conferences. So anyway, again, thank you. This is Lance Lingerfeld with Office Hours. I will give it to Curtis. And if anybody has any questions, feel free to ping any of us on our social media. And glad to have you. Thank you. Okay, great. Great. Thanks, guys. I'll edit this part out at the end. But thanks again. Yeah, great job, both of you. I know, Olafega, you went a little, you went a little over. That's okay. It happens. That's one of the hardest things to do because you'll start getting into talking about something and you'll come up with everything, and all of a sudden you've gone 30 minutes. We didn't even realize it. So. Um, But again, like I said, we'll have you on again. Don't worry about that. We'll have you on again, and we'll and it gives you a chance to practice on that. So I have to keep a little timer sometimes to keep my presentation, especially when you're going for an hour. Going from an hour presentation to a 20-minute presentation is a big difference. You have to learn to change how you approach it. I had to redo this whole entire presentation slide that I did for this one. So because usually my secure score, I go in a lot deeper into it. But anyway, do you guys have any questions? If not, thanks for your time. I appreciate it, and I'll be in touch and get you access to the video and slides. And I'll give you access to a OneDrive where you can upload your slides as well.
All right.
And I would suggest putting them in PDF. Put them in PDF form. That way they can't be modified. Um,
Yeah.
I put them in PDF form and put them up there so that people can get to them. So,
Okay.
all right. Thanks again.
All right. Thank you very much. Yes. Bye
Thank you,
bye.
All right.
Lance.
All right.
Bye.
All right. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jip. All right. Bye bye.